Only 1 week before I tied the knot, my now fiancé Derek's parents took him on a family vacation. It seemed innocent enough, just a final getaway before our wedding. But as soon as Derek came back, I noticed a shift in his demeanor. He looked at me and proclaimed, "I think I should consider taking a short break." I grinned, unsure of what he meant, but gave him a document to review, remarking, "That's funny." Something was off. Since I had gotten some unsettling information, I started paying closer attention. On the trip, Derek seemed more distant than usual. He spent the whole journey studying, and I was meant to console his enraged parents, who weren't exactly thrilled about our upcoming marriage. A week before the wedding, everything seemed to be set. Dresses were chosen, invitations sent, and cakes ordered. The entire event was planned to be held in Savannah, Georgia. Derek and I had been dating for 3 years, and I truly believed he was the one for me. We weren't perfect, but who is? He made me laugh, we shared a life together, and I was looking forward to becoming his wife. But there was always tension with Derek's parents. Ruth, his mother, had one of those stares that could make you feel like she was mentally calculating how much your shoes cost. Her husband, Walter, wasn't much better. He would say little, unless he was bragging about his vehicle or complaining about his children. Lately, though, I had sensed they didn't exactly like me. They came from a more affluent background, while I came from a working-class family. I wasn't into golf, and their discussions about memberships and prestigious schools went over my head. Derek, who had grown up in this world, often warned me that his parents didn't really understand my humble background, but he assured me that, eventually, they would come around. Still, just 1 week before the wedding, Derek informed me that his parents were taking him on a trip to Miami. It was no big deal, just a final retreat before the wedding. But I found the timing strange and a little too convenient. I decided not to confront him right then, figuring that it was just a short break. In hindsight, I should have trusted my gut. Derek seemed almost too eager to leave. He hardly even bade me farewell that Thursday when he left. On Saturday night, I had a sinking feeling that something was wrong. Miami was home to my dearest friend, C, and she worked at a bar downtown. It wasn't the type of place for quiet drinks. This was where the wealthy came to boast about how much money they had. While on the clock, C gave me a call. "Hey, isn't this the weekend of Derek's wedding plans?" she asked. "Why?" "Because I may have just seen him with his folks, and some girl I don't know." C mentioned that they had been seated at a VIP table the entire evening. Derek, his parents, and a young blonde girl with a fake tan, dressed in short clothing, definitely not the kind of person I would expect him to be hanging out with. As C described, it didn't sound like Derek was just being polite. He was engaging with this girl, laughing, and even inquiring about her. My heart sank. I had to know more. I realized that this wasn't a simple family vacation or a last-minute getaway before the wedding. This was Derek's attempt to meet someone else. I wasn't about to let this go unnoticed. The next morning, I was furious, but I didn't let it show. I immediately began making calls. I found a private investigator based in Miami who specialized in matters of the heart. He would accompany Derek and his family on their trip and gather information on his activities. It wasn't cheap, but I was determined to know the truth. By Monday, the investigator had already sent me his first batch of evidence. On Tuesday, I received more. There were pictures from different locations, hotels, restaurants, poolside lounges, and even a few shots from private dining rooms. Every single time Derek was in the frame, there was that same girl, giggling and holding doors for him, or sitting beside him, laughing. Even his parents seemed involved in the whole thing, leading the way as they strolled behind them. I kept all this information to myself. I didn't confront Derek yet. I wanted him to come home first, to face the reality of what he had done. When he finally returned late on Sunday, I pretended everything was normal. I brewed coffee and waited for him to arrive. When he walked through the door, I didn't say a word. I simply watched him closely. I knew he had seen me at my most vulnerable, but he was so caught up in whatever drama had unfolded that weekend that he couldn't even look me in the eye. Finally, he spoke. "I think we should take a break," he said. He said it like it was some grand decision he had been carrying around, as if this was some well-thought-out plan. For 6 days straight, I stared at him, not speaking, just waiting for him to realize what he had done. We were on the verge of getting married, and now he was telling me that we should take a break? I didn't ask why. I didn't say a word. I just walked to the table, grabbed the folder full of photos and the investigator's report, and placed it in front of him. I found it almost laughable because I knew he would try to explain this away. Initially, he was confused, but as he flipped through the images, I watched his face turn pale. I could tell he was ashamed. Walter and Ruth entered the room shortly after Derek began reading. Ruth had her usual planner in hand, looking every bit the authoritative figure she liked to be. They didn't say a word at first. There was just this eerie silence, one that seemed to stretch on forever. Have you ever been in a situation where you found out someone close to you wasn't being honest? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. As Derek flipped through the photos and read through the investigator's report, I watched his face change from confusion to horror. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't thought I would find out, but here it was, laid out in front of him. Pictures of him with that girl, laughing and enjoying themselves while his parents acted like nothing was wrong. I sat quietly, watching him process the information. It was a strange feeling, watching someone you love slowly realize that they've been caught. He looked at the pictures, then at me, and then back at the photos. The silence between us grew thick, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Walter, his father, and Ruth stood off to the side, observing the scene. Ruth's expression was unreadable, but Walter looked like he was trying to control his anger. I could see him grinding his teeth, but he said nothing. They both knew what Derek had done, and they were waiting for him to say something, anything that would make this situation better. But Derek didn't speak. He didn't know how to fix this. After all, how could he? The truth was there, staring us all in the face. Finally, Derek set the report down on the table and looked up at me. His face was pale, and I could see the shame in his eyes. But even with that shame, there was something else, something cold and distant. He wasn't ready to admit what he had done. "What do you want me to say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached for the folder and pulled out the pictures of him and Madison, sitting together at a poolside table, her hand resting on his. They were laughing, smiling like they had been enjoying something I could never be part of. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't marry him. I couldn't trust him. Not after everything that had happened. "I don't want you to say anything," I replied. "I want you to realize that this wasn't just a mistake. This was your choice. And now you have to deal with the consequences." Derek's face turned red, but he didn't respond. Instead, he stood up and walked to the door, his hands shaking as he grabbed his jacket. Ruth moved towards him, but I could see the distance in her eyes. She wasn't the protective mother anymore. She was just a bystander to her son's mistakes. Walter followed Derek, but neither of them said anything to me. They didn't apologize. They didn't try to defend him. They just left me standing there, alone with the truth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry. I was numb. The last few months of planning had been a blur: dress fittings, cake tastings, guest lists, and now it was all falling apart. And for what? So Derek could chase after someone else while I was left to pick up the pieces? As I stood there, the silence was suffocating. I had spent so much time trying to make everything perfect, planning a wedding, dreaming of a future with Derek. and now it was all slipping away in an instant. And yet, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth had come to light, and now I didn't have to pretend anymore. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. I sat back down on the couch, feeling the weight of everything. I had always known something was wrong. I had always sensed that Derek's family didn't like me, that they didn't think I was good enough for their son. But I never expected it to come to this. I never expected Derek to betray me in such a public way. The next few days were a whirlwind. Derek didn't contact me. His parents didn't reach out. They didn't even try to apologize. It was like they had all gone into hiding, too embarrassed to face what they had done. But I couldn't just sit back and let it happen. I had to make a decision. I called my friend C and told her everything. She was furious, but I could hear the sympathy in her voice. She understood. She'd been with me through it all, the wedding plans, the stress, the joy, and now the heartbreak. "You need to cancel the wedding," she said firmly. "Don't let him make you feel like you have to go through with this. You deserve better than this." I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to call Derek and scream at him, to tell him what I thought of him, to let him know that I couldn't go through with the wedding. But another part of me felt like I had already said everything that needed to be said. The pictures, the lies, they were enough. There was nothing more to discuss. So I took a deep breath and made the decision. I wasn't going to marry Derek. I couldn't. The day I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I stayed in bed. I didn't get up, didn't get dressed, and didn't even look at the phone. I just lay there, numb, as the day passed by without me. I didn't want to hear the phone ring with people asking where I was, or why I wasn't at the ceremony. I didn't want to hear the disappointment in their voices. But as the day wore on, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew that I had made the right decision. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life with someone who didn't care about me, someone who was willing to choose someone else over me without a second thought. I wasn't going to pretend that everything was okay just for the sake of keeping up appearances. And then the phone rang. It was Derek. The first picked it up, but I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say. Instead, I waited for him to say something, anything, that would explain why he had done what he had done. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaky. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, don't leave me. I love you." Have you ever been in a relationship where you had to make a difficult choice about your future? How did you find the strength to make that decision? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. I sat there, staring at the phone, Derek's words still hanging in the air. He loved me? Did he? How could he love me when he had been so careless with my heart, when he had chosen someone else over me? The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever felt before. I had trusted him, and yet he had shattered that trust without a second thought. "I love you," he repeated, his voice softer now. "I don't know what happened. It was a mistake, and I'm sorry. Please don't do this." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him that it was too late. Another part of me, the part that still loved him, despite everything, wanted to believe that he was sorry. But I couldn't ignore what I had seen with my own eyes. The pictures, the reports, the way he had acted. He had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. "I can't do this, Derek," I finally said, my voice trembling. "You've shown me who you really are, and I can't marry someone who doesn't value me. You've hurt me in a way that I can't forgive. I'm done." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I could hear his breathing, the quiet way he was processing my words, but there was no apology, no attempt to make things right. It was as though he knew, deep down, that he had lost me for good. "I understand," he said quietly. "I've ruined everything, haven't I?" "Yes," I replied, my voice firm. "You have." I hung up the phone and sat there for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, replaying the events of the past few days. I had spent so much time and energy planning a life with Derek, and now it was all falling apart. But as the initial shock wore off, something inside me started to shift. The anger and heartbreak began to fade, replaced by a sense of relief. I wasn't going to marry a man who didn't respect me. I wasn't going to spend my life with someone who thought it was okay to lie, to cheat, to betray me. I deserved better than that, and I was done settling for less. The following days were a blur. I contacted the wedding venue and explained the situation, canceling everything. I couldn't believe how quickly it had all unraveled, how easily Derek had slipped away from me and into the arms of someone else. But I didn't regret my decision, not for a second. It wasn't just about Derek anymore. It was about me. It was about reclaiming my power, my self-respect, and my future. I had spent so much time trying to make things work with him, trying to fit into a life that wasn't mine, that I had forgotten who I was. But now, I was ready to find myself again. I was ready to start over. I spent the next few days in a daze, surrounded by my friends and family, who all offered their support. They were shocked by what had happened, but they were there for me, every step of the way. They helped me pack up the remnants of what was supposed to be my wedding day, and slowly, I started to feel the weight of the past few months lift off my shoulders. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, but I was beginning to heal. Then, one day, I got a message from C. She had been keeping tabs on Derek's social media, and what she found only confirmed what I already knew. Derek was still seeing Madison. In fact, they were spending more time together than ever before, flaunting their relationship in public, as if nothing had ever happened between us. It stung to see it, but at the same time, it solidified my decision. Derek had moved on. He had chosen Madison, and now he had to live with the consequences of his actions. And so did I. I realized that I didn't need him to be happy. I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was whole on my own, and I had everything I needed to create the life I had always dreamed of. It was scary, yes, but it was also exciting. I was free. The months that followed were transformative. I threw myself into my work, focusing on building a career and finding new passions. I spent more time with my friends and family, reconnecting with the people who had always been there for me. And slowly, I started to rediscover who I was outside of the relationship I had with Derek. I traveled to new places, explored new hobbies, and even started dating again. It wasn't easy, but with each new experience, I felt more confident and more at peace with myself. I had learned that I didn't need to rely on anyone else to find happiness. I could create my own happiness, and I was doing just that. One evening, as I was sitting on my balcony, enjoying a glass of wine and watching the sunset, I received a text message from Derek. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the best of me. The message simply read, "I miss you." For a moment, I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart skipping a beat. It was the first time in months that he had reached out, and part of me wanted to respond. Part of me wanted to pick up where we left off, to see if things could work. But then I remembered everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal, the pain, and I realized that I had already made my peace. I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to let him back into my life. Not after everything he had done. I deleted the message without replying and put my phone down. I smiled to myself, feeling a sense of pride and relief wash over me. I had moved on. I was finally free. Have you ever had to let go of someone you thought you would spend your life with? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your experiences in the comments. Your story could help others who are going through something similar. Months passed, and I slowly but surely began to rebuild my life. I had learned to embrace the me that didn't rely on anyone else to define my worth, the me that was finally living for herself. The decision to walk away from Derek was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most liberating. There were days when I felt lonely, when I missed the companionship and the idea of what we could have been. But those days became fewer and fewer as time went on. I found comfort in my friends, my work, and most importantly, in myself. I learned to enjoy my own company, to find peace in the quiet moments, and to appreciate the little things in life that I had once overlooked. It wasn't always easy, but I had made it through. And one day, when I least expected it, I received a message from my mother. She had been following my journey closely and knew how much I had struggled in the past year. Her words were simple but powerful. Remember that you are stronger than you think. You have always been enough. You've always been worthy of love, respect, and happiness. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise. Her message hit me like a wave of clarity. For so long, I had let the actions of others define my worth. I had allowed Derek's betrayal, Ruth and Walter's judgment, and my own fears to dictate how I saw myself. But my mother's words reminded me that I didn't need to seek validation from anyone else. I was enough, just as I was. That realization was a turning point. I began to trust myself more, to make decisions that aligned with my values and what I wanted from life. I was no longer afraid of being alone, because I understood that being alone didn't mean being unworthy. It meant that I had the freedom to choose my path and the strength to walk it, no matter how difficult it might seem. One night, as I was scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a post from C. She had been one of my strongest supporters throughout everything, and her post made me smile. She had shared a picture of the two of us from a trip we had taken a few months back, and her caption read, "The strongest woman I know. Sometimes life throws curveballs, but she always finds a way to keep swinging." Her words resonated deeply with me. I had faced so many challenges in the past year, and there had been moments when I wanted to give up, but I hadn't. I had kept going, and I had grown stronger because of it. I had learned that life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes things fall apart, but that doesn't mean that the story is over. It just means that we have the chance to start a new chapter, to rewrite our narrative, and to make our own happiness. A few weeks later, I found myself at a crossroads. I had been offered a new job in another city, and the opportunity was exciting. It was everything I had wanted: a fresh start, a chance to build something new. But it also meant leaving behind the life I had built here, the friends, the memories, and the place where I had found my strength. I spent days weighing the decision. It was hard to leave behind the people and places I had come to love, but I knew deep down that this was the right move for me. I wasn't running away from my past. I was moving toward my future. On the day I made my decision, I called C to tell her the news. Her voice was full of excitement and encouragement, just as it had always been. She told me that she was proud of me, that she knew I would succeed wherever I went. Her support meant the world to me, and I knew that no matter where life took me, I would always have her by my side. I packed my things and said goodbye to the life I had known. It was bittersweet, but it was also thrilling. I was starting over, but this time, I was doing it for me. I wasn't doing it to please anyone else. I was doing it because I had learned to trust myself and my decisions. The first few months in my new city were challenging. It was hard to adjust to a new environment, to make new friends, and to settle into a routine. But every day, I reminded myself that I was doing this for myself, that I was building a life that was mine and mine alone. And slowly, I began to feel at home. I met new people, explored new places, and embraced new experiences. I began to rediscover the joy in simple things, like going for a walk in the park, enjoying a cup of coffee at a local cafe, or spending time with friends. I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't experienced in years, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy. Then, one day, I got a call from my mother. She had heard from a mutual friend that Derek had tried to reach out to me again. He had been asking about me, about how I was doing, and if I was still angry with him. Apparently, he was having a hard time letting go of the past and wanted to apologize for everything. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me was tempted to listen, to hear what he had to say. But then I remembered everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal, the pain. I realized that I didn't need his apology to move forward. I had already forgiven myself, and that was enough. So I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already let go of the past, and I wasn't going to allow Derek or anyone else to pull me back into it. Have you ever had to let go of something or someone in order to move forward in life? How did you find the strength to move on? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Life often presents us with moments of heartbreak and disappointment, but it is in these challenging times that we find our true strength. This story serves as a powerful reminder that we are never truly defined by the actions of others, especially when those actions betray our trust. The key lesson here is that we must value ourselves enough to walk away from relationships that do not serve our well-being, no matter how difficult it may seem in the moment. It's easy to lose sight of who we are when we give so much of ourselves to others, but true happiness begins when we take back our power and prioritize our own happiness. This journey of self-discovery, healing, and strength is a testament to the importance of self-respect. We can choose to let go of the past, heal from it, and move forward with newfound wisdom and peace. If you've ever had to make a hard decision about your future, how did you find the strength to move on? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience may inspire someone else who's going through a similar challenge right now.